Okay, we're recording now. Thank you all that made the time today. We have a very, let me say again, it's very special guest. I've been trying to get Emily in here all over, and I'll give a minute for her to introduce herself. Today is a bittersweet for me. It's my last day as leader of the group. Reason being, I accept an offer with Salesforce. I started on the 24th, so therefore I cannot be no longer official leader. However, I found somebody way more capable than myself, and I have the slide here with the Walter Spinner. He came from Salesforce. He's a CTA, has a tons and tons of experience. I'm gonna have him to make a brief introduction of himself, and then we get to our main speaker, which is Emily Patra, CTA and head of MuleSoft and EMEA. Just to recap, I'm very happy for our group. We started in April. We have so far 8 events, more than any other group in there combined, averaging 2 events per month. And from those 8 events, 6 of them were female. So we're really encouraging minorities. And I'm pretty sure that Walter will continue the tradition of the group to be top notch. So, with that said, Walter, take it away.
Sure. Thanks, Carlos. And I do have some pretty big shoes to fill here. So I'm excited to step in and you know bring forth content and lead this community group. Helping other architects, growing knowledge is one of my passions. So a little about myself. I'm a U.S. Army veteran. After the Army, I embraced technology and basically dove into it head first. Um, One of those interesting folks of information technology with an MBA, and I've used that to further my career as an enterprise architect for about 30 years. I joined Salesforce in 2015 and spent 7 wonderful years with an amazing company. Uh, and this past May, I had an opportunity to actually grow a architect community from the ground up with a new Salesforce partner. So I took the chance and trying to build something, to leave a little legacy. With that, I'm able now to step in and take a more active role and really give back to the community and help grow it. So I currently live near Tampa over in the Brandon Valrico area. Uh, Been there since 2017 with my wife. We have 2 adult children, and when I'm not thinking about Salesforce or technology, I like to play golf, ski, travel, cook, and read. That's I look forward to getting to know everybody, and I am looking forward to everybody giving me ideas of what kind of content they want to see as we move forward.
Thanks, Walter. With that said, we'll pass on to Emily Petra, the legend, the lady, the power, the knowledge. So, take it away, Emily.
Thank you, Carlos, and thank you for having me on this group. Wow, what a privilege! Your last user group. I didn't realize that, but I'm glad that you'll be a colleague soon. So that's fantastic. Let me start sharing my screen, and hopefully you all can see that, right? Yeah.
Yes, for the record, I'm not going away. I'm gonna continue to collaborate with Walter. It's just that I cannot have my name in there as the leader. But yeah, you know me. I'm everywhere helping.
Amazing. We don't want to see you disappear anyway. So, so it's great. And welcome to Salesforce, Carlos.
Thank you.
So we're here to talk about, well, why do you need a Salesforce architect anyway, which is quite a topic. I don't know how many people have actually had this discussion around Salesforce and how easy it is, and there's a little bit of history to which Salesforce has evolved from being a CRM to a platform and now to being a multi-domain platform, with integration and analytics and all of that. So there's quite an evolution there. So I'm going to explore the topic a little more today. And before I do that, let me introduce myself. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Emily Patra. I head the Europe, Middle East, and Africa region for MuleSoft Success Architects and the strategy team. And I have been with Salesforce since 2015, but my technology career spans across about 20 years. And the reason I'm talking about what an architect does is I've been an architect for most of those 20 years. And in that experience of time, I've seen different kinds of architectures. I've experienced different kind of environments and technologies. Before I joined Salesforce, I was in the Oracle ecosystem. I used to work for Oracle. I've also done their ERP, their CRM, Siebel, their integration platform, SOA, for those of you who are aware of it, etc. So it's been quite an interesting journey for me. And now being part of the Salesforce ecosystem for the last 7 years, it's absolutely been incredible, especially going through the CTA journey and working with the community. I can honestly say I have never seen such a strong community or built around a product ever. So this is fantastic. Love the community. Love working with everyone around here. So that's just a little bit about myself. If you want to, introduce yourself, please ping me on LinkedIn, and I'll be more than happy to connect. Right. So let's start into the topic. And I thought, what's the best way to actually talk about why do you need architects? Because it's quite a prickly topic. So I thought I will tell you a story of Easy Tech, which was an organization with quite a federated business model. They were doing well, they were on a high growth curve, and their group CEO realized that, she doesn't have visibility into the business. She doesn't know what the salespeople are doing. She doesn't know how much revenue is forecast for next quarter. And she has all these little pieces of data, in all over the place, but she doesn't have a single view of a business. So someone told her about Salesforce CRM, Sales Cloud, and the AE did a brilliant job and convinced her that that's the right CRM to go because, well, that's what Salesforce is for, right? To give you a single view of your business and to be able to connect to your customers better. So the CEO decides that Salesforce would help her streamline her sales processes. And the ambition there was to improve sales productivity by 70% by getting all the sales team on the CRM product. So she decides to buy Salesforce. And with her team, she decides to look at Salesforce and maybe talks to her CTO. And the CTO says, yeah, Salesforce is easy to start with. I've seen all the demos. The solution engineers have told me, oh my God, it's just clicks. There's no code. It's all configured, drag and drop. Fantastic tool, modern day SaaS. Let's go for it. So they start implementing Salesforce in their business and they start seeing the returns of Salesforce. And it's been brilliant because now the CEO has, can forecast more accurately, has a view of the business, can see the pipeline, has a view of the customers and the accounts and the contacts and everything. But they hired an admin to implement Salesforce because it was so easy, rightly so. And they did what is the right way to start is they did implementation with vanilla processes and Salesforce standard out-of-box features. But now the business is growing and they're becoming an enterprise. And they want new processes, but they don't always fit into the framework that the out-of-box product provides. So they now start thinking about customizations. They now start thinking their data model doesn't quite fit in to the data model that Salesforce provides. The objects are not enough for them. So they want to create their own objects. They want to write a little bit of customization. They want to do their own processes. They want to write some triggers. So they realize that having an admin and a business analyst is not enough. So They realize they need developers now because they're now starting to customize the org to work according to their unique business needs, which is again what most customers do. Nothing wrong with that. Fantastic. So this happens, and then the business needs to grow. And when the business needs to grow, the word of how great Salesforce and Sales Cloud was spreads to other divisions, other leaders, other partners who are working with the business of Easy Tech, and they all want to share in it. Uh, they all want to know how they can benefit from this latest and greatest CRM that, well, the sales team has got now. So different requirements start coming in, different projects start coming in. They all want to be on the platform. They all want the single view of customers, and they want to use it in different ways. So the support leader wants the support team to have a seamless access to the customer 360 data and also have a single console where they can work, and they are thinking Service Cloud now. They're talking to Salesforce about adding, these licenses and expanding the org. And on the other hand, the sales team also says, yes, if we knew of those cases that support is working on before we go and talk about an expand deal with our customers, how fantastic will that be? So it's a win-win. Everyone agrees that they need more more products, more features. They need to expand the functionality of the org because it benefits the business, and they need to grow the business. So here now we're talking about more config, more code, more customization, and now even integrations come into play. And because they have other systems which hold data, everything is out on Salesforce. So now they start bringing in developers to build in some point-to-point integrations as well, because they need some data here and some data there, and they just need to move things around a little bit. And that's how this whole integration and landscape starts evolving as well. So what's next? Well, the story of Easy Tech, as far as Salesforce is concerned, 5 years on, when the business has grown, they're an enterprise, is come to this now. They have ended up with multiple Salesforce orgs because they have maybe acquired organizations, or they have different business units which have gone away and acquired their own Salesforce orgs and implemented their own Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Commerce Cloud, Analytics, MuleSoft. They have multiple platforms and products now because they are an enterprise. So they've just not been expanding and growing with Salesforce. They have other products sitting in their enterprise landscape, which makes them a complex platform and products landscape to navigate. They have a unique need now to integrate to other enterprise applications and analytics to give them that view. So they are actually full circle back onto the same problem of complexity and not having the view into the world of data that they have, because now their data, their specialized data, their order data, their customer data is sitting in different systems, maybe in different landscapes, which could have come via acquisitions or growth, um, or simply by the virtue of the enterprise growing and them needing, best of breed. um Best of breed applications in the landscape. And of course, with all of this landscape and IT complexity, there's a massive need for security. And they're an enterprise. There's a massive need for being secure and compliant. That's the top priority right now because they are operating not just in North America, but they're operating in international markets. They need to follow the laws of GDPR. They need to make sure that their customer data is secure. There's a lot of cyber hacking going on these days. So it is top of mind for everyone. And COVID has made it worse. So with COVID, their employees have started working remotely. With COVID, the need for that enterprise security and securing the data is even more now. So all of this has now resulted in a complexity, which is natural for any enterprise growth. And like I say, the complexity is a natural effect of organization growth and success. And we need someone now who can have a look at this full picture strategically and help achieve the business needs of the organization efficiently using the technologies that they already have. So remember, throughout, they have been growing piecemeal. They have been thinking of one requirement at a time, one project at a time. But that has resulted in a complexity because they were not taking the picture, the full picture, the long-term roadmap into consideration. But now they're at a stage where it's all too complex. It's all too difficult. So what do they do next? They again go through their challenges, and this is where they have landed now. So again, they don't have any idea about what the source of truth is. Uh, they need to go to market quickly with new offerings, but now, because of the complexity in their landscape, they don't have the agility to go to market quickly with new offerings or new go-to-market products. The world is changing. There's a pandemic, there's a war, there's a recession. They need to change their strategy. Business needs to evolve, and business needs to deliver changes to the market quickly. Because in today's world, big doesn't eat small, fast eats slow. And that's the industry we live in. So that is a key business requirement. And it's so complex that they cannot change things easily. They cannot make sense of stuff, and they can't do a roadmap. And of course, all of this is compounded by the fact that they have siloed data, they have cybersecurity concerns, they have compliances and data regulations to adhere to. And so this is really the story of not just easy tech, but any enterprise right now. So what do easy tech do? They realize they need an architect. And because they're a big Salesforce enterprise, they hire a Salesforce architect, who's Ruth here. And the idea of this story was to introduce why we need architects in the first place. A lot of enterprises actually start thinking about Salesforce as an easy configurable tool, which they can hire one person or two people, a developer and an admin, and they can just get through. That may be true when you're a small to medium business, but as you grow and as the complexity of your enterprise architecture grows, it becomes more and more difficult to keep tab of the changes. And we go through all of these challenges in an enterprise that EasyTech saw all this time. So with that, I'm introducing Ruth. Ruth is the architect who's come to fix EasyTech. And Ruth essentially does things like enterprise roadmaps. She enforces best practices. She builds for scalability, maintainability, resilience, security, composability at enterprise scale. And that is why a Salesforce architect is so important in today's landscape. So what is a Salesforce architect? Now, traditionally, if you looked at Salesforce about 15, 20 years ago, architecture was not a concept at that time. Like I said, admins were more prevalent, developers were more prevalent, architects were rare and few. They only appeared in enterprises, and that too, they were more generic architects, Salesforce architects. So what does a Salesforce architect typically do? And this is, I've put it very simply, a architect definition, and I've put a disclaimer there to say, the term architect in today's world can have many different interpretations because it's really based on the context. We see all kinds of architects, all types of architect titles popping up. And there are definitely many flavors of architects in today's world. But simply put, my idea is that a Salesforce architect, at the heart of it, is an experienced technology practitioner who can understand, interpret, and translate business needs to technology implementations. They can manage and communicate to various business and technical stakeholders. They can help build solutions forming the most relevant best practices, and they can act as design authorities when building the systems or designing the systems. And they understand the wider enterprise technology landscape as well, and the role of Salesforce within that landscape. And this is quite key. This is quite important. The reason an architect is such an important part of the ecosystem is not because they just know Salesforce, because there is a part where you architect within Salesforce, but really, architecture is about your IT landscape. And a great architect is an architect who has knowledge beyond Salesforce, who can understand where does Salesforce fit in into the entire landscape, rather than just delve inside Salesforce. So there's a key difference there, where an architect has to take an outside in view rather than inside out view. So typical responsibilities of an architect, I know there are lots of words there, so I'm not going to read through all, but essentially I have divided them into three pillars. One is a typical architecture pillar. The architecture pillar is all about deciding what the architectural drivers are, deciding how to evaluate an architecture. It's about problem solving. It's about risk assessment, knowing where it can go wrong, where you have a plan B, what are the alternatives to unachievable solutions. And of course, then being responsible for the evolution of the architecture. And this is all about that scalability, maintainability, agility of architecture, which is so important today. Today, everyone is talking about composable enterprise. And with composable enterprise, the key thing that comes is how fast and how flexible is your architecture? How fast can you pivot your business model? How fast can you pivot your solution to meet the needs of the business today? And that actually, a lot of it comes from the architectural vision and and how an architect has created the building blocks of the landscape so that they can all change and compose into different solutions. And then it's all about the roadmap as well. An architect needs to have at least a medium term vision of the future to say, well, how is it likely to evolve? And it's a debatable topic to say whether you should architect or not for the future. You can't architect everything for the future, but you can definitely build flexibility in your architecture to take whatever the future throws at you. So that's just one way of looking at it. The second pillar is about technology and the technical expertise of the architect. Now, the second pillar is all about the technology selection. So, an architect may be engaged in some end user enterprises and actually selecting the products and technology which is relevant to that enterprise. So, they may be deciding what technology actually makes it in and which technology or which platform the solution gets implemented on. They are, in a way, responsible for quality assurance itself. So they are looking at best practices. They are looking at the adherence to the governance standards of the enterprise. They are the ones who are responsible to say, well, is this going to adhere to my governance? Is this going to breach my security? Is there a compliance architecture I need to see? Or are there check boxes for GDPR that the solution meets, etc.? So that part also comes under the umbrella of architecture. Of course, they are design authorities because they are experts at Salesforce. So if they're experts at Salesforce, they can evaluate designs at high level and they can again see if it's compliant with the architectural principles that they have decided for the program or the platform. They can set development standards, so they can work with development teams and they can work with project teams to make sure that all the implementations follow certain standards and certain conventions. They can be part of the deployment strategy. Again, these people are Salesforce platform, um, you know, experts, so they know what deployment strategies you should use, especially if you're dealing with things like large data volumes, where you need to know how you're going to do your migration, what kind of APIs should you use, what kind of strategy for data segmentation should you use, etc. What are the kind of dependencies you should avoid when you're loading data into Salesforce? And the third pillar, I think, is as important as the first and the second one, because really in today's world, an architect needs to be a leader. An architect is a thought leader within an organization who ties the business team to the technical team. An architect is a translator. It can translate the business outcomes into technical implementation, and it can translate technical challenges to business people to come to a conclusion and suitable alternative solutions. Of course, stakeholder management is a key skill with any architect, because stakeholder management means that the architect has to talk to different kinds of stakeholders, whether it's business, whether it's project management, whether it's finance, whether it's technology, whether it's business analysts, whether it's developers or admins. because they are the thread which is holding the whole solution together. Negotiation is again a key skill. There are always design trade-offs. Then I have never seen in my 20 years of experience that a project has actually been 100% implemented on the initial design that was presented. There's always a gotcha moment. There's always a moment where you realize this will not work because there are other factors or other drivers, or something has changed. An assumption has failed. And hence, it is very important to have those negotiation skills to then go and look for the suitable alternative solution by aligning and keeping all the stakeholders happy. Uh, and then, of course, I talked about translation. I talked about coaching and mentoring. Very important skill. An architect is typically a very senior member of the team, and hence uh, acts as a coach and mentor to the rest of the team, whether it's developers or admins or other junior architects as well, or other domain architects that we're going to talk about. So, just a few, this is by no means exhaustive. So this is what the key roles look like. Of course, day to day, you might do a lot of other things, but this is really what the baseline of architecture looks like. And of course, architects help us build well architected solutions. Now, if you were at Dreamforce and you were at the architect's keynote, you would have seen that we launched the well architected framework at Dreamforce again, or we relaunched it again. So if you haven't seen it, please go to Salesforce Plus and do see the architect keynote, which we did with our CTO and co-founder Parker Harris. Zane and Mark and Susanna were there, and I was there. It was a lot of fun doing it. But I think this is such a great step for Salesforce to be focusing Dreamforce this year on architects. This year was the biggest year ever on architects track. We did workshops, we did a keynote where we, launched this framework. And to be honest, we've never had a Salesforce architecture framework before. We have had great Salesforce architects, we've had CTAs with tons and tons of knowledge. I think what we've now managed to do is bring it all together to converge at a point, and we want to make sure that we have, or we are defining an industry standard framework for Salesforce so that anyone who implements Salesforce has access to best practices, knows what to think about when they're designing a solution. Essentially, the three pillars of the first phase of well-architected framework are trusted, easy, adaptable. We talk more about it in the keynote. So again, if you haven't watched it, please watch it on Salesforce Plus. So yes, this is what an architect helps the solutions to do. And of course, an architecting a solution is a little bit like playing with Lego blocks. Now, for those of you who've heard any of my talks before, I always talk about this. This is my favorite slide. I'm a Lego fan, and I believe what I do day to day is so much like building Lego blocks. Each block has a function. In architecture, you have your integration to think about security, processes, scalability, performance, usability, but all of that, the same blocks come together based on the business context to form a different or a new solution. And that is what is so interesting about the composable enterprise. That if you have architected your enterprise the right way, if you have made your building blocks the right way, then you could reuse some of them and you could compose a completely different solution or a completely different product out of the same building blocks without having to redo your whole architecture or your whole solution. And that's the beauty of enterprise architecture. So, looking at all of these domains, which is involved in the architecting a solution, what is a composable enterprise? Well, a composable enterprise is the future of innovation, frankly. That's how businesses are going to survive and be agile and adapt to the environment fast enough. And if you think you don't see composable enterprise yet, you're wrong. Every single interaction or most interactions you have in your day-to-day life with retailers, with commerce platforms are actually quite composable these days. And composability, if you just look at this picture, it's a mobile app. It's a retail mobile app where you can buy shoes. And look at all of those services that are no way part of the same organization. They're different businesses, they're focused on different domains, but they all come together to provide you, Mr. Customer, a seamless experience of the business that you're interacting with. And this wouldn't have been possible without a composable enterprise. So, for example, if we look at this picture, and if I look at the implementation behind this picture, this mobile app is probably built on Commerce Cloud or Commerce Platform. But there's a logistics provider there, UPS, who's actually going to ship the orders when you order on the app. But UPS is not part of a technology company. UPS is its own business. But they have an API which our commerce platform has the ability to call and consume and exchange data with, so that I don't have to explicitly maybe go to UPS. I could get my alerts on my commerce platform and see exactly when my orders ready for dispatch, when it's on my way, when I'm going to get it, what time the driver is going to land up on my doorstep. And these are similar processes. You could choose to get notified on social media. You could post a review on Instagram for the brand new shoes that you received right through that commerce platform, right through that app in your hand, without having to go to Instagram, all through the power of APIs and composability. And when things change, when the platform changes, when there are new technologies which are introduced, you do not need to rebuild it all, because these are not point-to-point integrations. And this is the beauty of modern applications, that they are composed, they're not custom coded. And that is why, again, you need an architect, because an architect will have this vision of building blocks, will have the roadmap, will build the solution, not just to work for your current requirement, but would build it for flexibility, scalability, and changeability in the future. And this is why an architect is so important in an enterprise. And with that, of course, we live, like I said in my previous slide, there are so many flavors of architects that have come up now. I mean, just within the Salesforce ecosystem, we look at enterprise architects, like Walter said he was. And enterprise architects are really industry level senior architects. They understand the industry, they understand Salesforce, but they understand so much more. They understand the whole technology landscape. They understand how it all fits in together. Then we have a new breed of architects called experience architects, who are really laser focused on the experience of the end user using the technology or interacting with the technology. You know how easy it is, how some apps are like a breeze to use, where you can go 2 clicks and you've got everything you want. And some apps are nightmare because you can't find the data you want, no matter how many pages you go through. And that's the expertise of the enterprise architects. That's what they think, simplicity. Then you have data architects. Data is the currency, it's the gold today. And there are people there who are completely focused on, organizing and making sure data is available at the right time, with the right technology, with the right efficiency, stored in the right way, accessible to the right platforms, and secured. And these people are handling trillions of data that's coming their way, and it's growing by the day. So apparently, the amount of data human beings are created will probably run out of storage at some point. But it's again a specialized domain that has emerged out of the need, because now we have the capability to generate vast amounts of data. Every interaction we have in the digital world turns into data. And hence, we need specialized architects to think about how that data is used, stored, and utilized. And of course, we know solution architects and technical architects. We've been in the Salesforce ecosystem. Solution architects are, and I think I saw Carlos was writing a paper he calls Elephant in the Room. And it was a very good definition there, of solution architects, where he said solution architects are responsible for really solutionizing the Salesforce product to meet your business requirements. And technical architects go a little bit deeper than that. And they go into a little bit wider than maybe going into integration or, LDV or performance. So there are many more flavors of architects. And I'm sure as we grow and as the technology landscape around us go, as new technologies get introduced, the flavors of architects will change as well. But this is just to give you an example of, if you're thinking about a career in Salesforce, you and you're wondering where to start, take a view and see your level of experience, what you like doing, what your strength is, and whether you fit into one of these flavors or a different flavor, which I haven't mentioned. But it's all changing. The world of technology is evolving, and there's so much out there. But one thing's clear: with all this evolution that's coming into the technology world, the complexity is growing as well. So to manage that complexity, you need an architect's view. You need someone who will look at it outside in, who will get the full picture, who will be able to do a strategic roadmap for you. So an architect is no longer an option. An architect is almost mandatory in any enterprise level Salesforce projects, because there's so many platforms to deal with as well. It's no longer Sales Cloud and Service Cloud. It's Commerce Cloud and Analytics and MuleSoft and Slack and everything else that's coming along with it. So you need someone who understands and ties all those strings together and gives you the best possible use of the technology that you're dealing with. And with that, I would like to say thank you and open up for questions.
Fantastic content, Emily. I really like it. And folks, this is your chance to ask, debate, question. Do as you please.
Hello there, this is JP from Beaufort, Georgia. Unfortunately, I cannot be on video. Next time, I'll try my best. Thank you, Emily. Thank you. But let me say thank you first to Carlos for your leadership that you've been giving to that group. Now you pass the baton to Walter, and I just sent an invitation to connect with you all. Even though I'm all the way in Atlanta and Georgia, I look forward to continue connecting with you all as I'm new in that area. I just recently, while I was in Dreamforce, be able to pass my Developer 1 certification, and then upon my return in Atlanta, I passed my Architect certification, because those were the two that I needed to get to that level. But as I'm not saying that I'm transitioning now, but I'm preparing myself for a bigger thing, as I just launched my own company called Pillars Enterprises. The goal is to offer services where if a customer, a company want to implement Salesforce, if they're looking for people to help them, guide them with the Salesforce ecosystem, that's why I wanna launch that company at that level. But I wanted to cover all spectrums. That's the reason why I wanted to be an architect at that level. So I'm glad that Emily was able to kind of go over. And as I was reading, as I was listening, I was like, oh, okay. It's not just getting a certification. It's knowing what your responsibility will be as an architect. But one thing that I would say, in order for you to get you ready for that phase, if you ever have a customer that they will need your assistance as an architect, what would I need to really, beside the little skills that I have that I learned, what else that I will need to focus on? Is it integration? I know I want to be a data architect. That's the model that I'm following. Beside of that, what else would you suggest for me to really get under my belt to be able to deliver if I ever have an opportunity to work as a data architect?
So first of all the best. You said you're starting your own startup, so that's huge. So congratulations and all the best for your new model. So if I understood your question correctly, you said, if I want to be an architect who gets to work with a customer, apart from knowing my theoretically, which I will through my certifications, what else will I need?
Yeah.
The most important thing about being an architect is getting an experience of how not works, but also how it maps and how it solves business problem. What are the alternatives? What are the pitfalls of each solution? And a lot of it actually comes with experience of implementation, being part of teams where there are more experienced people who are debating the pros and cons of a solution or a design before they go ahead with it. And a lot of the architects, good architects, actually they stand out from other architects because they can almost forecast the problems. And sometimes they have an alternative, and sometimes they do a risk assessment and continue with the risk, knowing very well that there's a small percentage and they would be able to either pivot with that problem or overcome that problem. And that comes with experience. So I guess if you're really planning to work with customers, I would suggest if you can other programs first and gain some practical Salesforce implementation experience. Work with other architects if possible, work in teams if possible, before you go and do some, solo gigs, because that is very important. That experience barely comes from exams. Exams will give you a very, very thorough baseline of the platform and the best practices, but the nuances of actually working and implementing business needs really have to be experienced. So I always suggest before, no one becomes an architect by passing an architect certification. I think an architect is really by experience. And I have a lot of respect for Walter. I knew him when he was at Salesforce and I joined Salesforce. I think, Walter, you were still there. So I would love your opinion, Walter. What do you think?
Everything you said is spot on. The one thing that as architects, and Emily, I'm sure you approach life the same way I do. We see life in patterns. We identify the patterns in business. We identify the patterns in technology. And while some of our solutions end up being really unique and can be kind of cool, they're always repeatable. They're repeatable because we're solving for the pattern and for the intent. So every business out there wants to believe they're unique, but what they do is not unique. So it's our job as architects to let them feel unique and solve their challenges in a way that will make them be more competitive in their marketplace, but it's still a repeatable solution and a repeatable process.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
I
this
think
is
that's
where I think we
so. Thank you. Well, thank you, Emily and Walter. That's awesome. And I figured that out. That's the reason why I know I implemented Salesforce for a couple of nonprofits, and then I started working in certain projects. And then the scary part is when I see people pinging me. They say, "I'm looking for an architect. I need it." I said, "Whoa, wait. I don't. I'm not there. No, I don't want to." There are things that make you like you have fear because there's a lot more than knowing the platform that you need to be able to be exposed, working with other people in other projects and get your hands dirty and be able to know. And there's something that Walter just mentioned that is so true. And there's nothing new, out there. Everything is a repeatable pattern, but you have to know at least the certain scenario in order for you to know, okay, if the customer will come with this, okay, here's how we're going to approach that. And here's how we're going to prevent this. Here's how, if we do this, is what's going to happen later as you're growing. If we don't do this that way, here's what we'll do. Things of that nature. I think that's, like you said, definitely. I really need to be exposed more and then work with people that I have projects and listen and follow and get some mentorship. I think I'll get there that way. But thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, and that's why I started with the story of evolution of an enterprise, because no matter what, if an enterprise is to add more complexity, and there will be patterns, and if you have an architect there, they'll be able to see the pattern. They'll be able to almost anticipate the coming complexity and build to it, or at least take that in mind when designing solution, build blocks, make sure it's, repeatable, reusable, so that scaling is easier and less painful. And any feedback?
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that elephant in the room post, that I share with you. I might go after you again to refine that and probably publish. Because nowadays the word architect is being abused, and you see people juggling several jobs, and because they're juggling several jobs, they think they're an architect and they are not. And there's nothing wrong with being an admin. I think at the end of the day, admin is the one that keeping all the pieces together. But there's a big, I wouldn't say that there's a big push, but there's a big, what's trendy, and what's changing for the last 6 months or 9 months is people just put on their resume, oh, I'm an architect. Really? How many integrations have you done? Oh, well, how many questions have you had to address about the data skewing? How you manage your sharing visibility, if you get involved with the territory management. That's the kind of things that, an architect have to focus on. But people calling themselves architects, they can call whatever they want to, but an education really needs to be done in there. That's
Definitely.
the way that I see it.
Definitely. And I think Salesforce is still a young ecosystem for architects.
Oh yeah, definitely. Anything else? If it's not, I guess I want to say once again, thank you, Emily. Emily is in UK, so it's already after dinner time for her. Walter is in the Bahamas. I'm jealous, vacationing. So I want to thank you all, and I hope you all give the same support that you have given so far to me, that you extend that to Walter. And don't miss the next event in 2 weeks from today. It's going to be design patterns for Salesforce CID. Pablo is a very knowledgeable guy in Europe, and he showed that presentation at the Dreamforce. He's doing for different groups. He just presented today on the Architect Ohana. So I'm looking forward to see you folks again in 2 weeks. Until then, I hope you have a great rest of your day. All good?
Thank you.
Thank you,
very much.
Carlos, and thank you for everything you've done for the community.
Thank you so much, man. With the pleasure. Thanks again, everybody. Bye-bye.